Good evening.
Julie, I guess we should get started.
Okay. You have a few more people, I think, that will be joining us, but they could come in and we could go ahead and get underway.
Sort of like to get started on time.
Yep.
I want to thank everyone for participating, coming in and participating. I want to first just say we had some amazing and sad days in the nation over the last 24 hours, and I just ask everyone to continue to pray for our nation and for our leaders. Tonight, we're here to hear your comments, suggestions, ideas for the next superintendent. We think it's very valuable to have you speak to us. We have a number of our board members present. I'll give them an opportunity to introduce themselves very briefly, but we value your feedback. I would ask you also to complete the online survey. And if you wouldn't mind forwarding the survey to other residents within the state of Maryland so that we can get the fullest responses possible. Again, we really, really appreciate you taking time out. And we're really interested in hearing what you have to say. At this time, I'd like to just briefly give our board an opportunity to just introduce themselves. We'll start with my my co-chair, Senator Bates. I think you were there, right? Senator Bates? Sorry. Okay. All righty. She'll be with us then.
There I am. Okay.
Okay. All righty.
As I told you before, technology is not my strong suit. I'm still anyway. This is a really, really important task that we're up to right about now. The future of Maryland's children certainly is in all of our hands, and we want to make the best decision possible on a new superintendent. And I really appreciate working with all of these wonderful people, and we look forward to hearing the comments. There's an awful lot going on in our state and our country right now. We want to make Maryland the best. So thank you very much for your participation.
Thank you. I'd like to have Ms. McCusker.
Good evening. I'm Rachel McCusker, the active teacher member on the Maryland State Board. Thank you all so much for taking the time to come out and share your thoughts with us this evening. It's really important in helping to guide us towards a really quality candidate for the state of Maryland. Thanks again for your time.
Thank you. And Ms. Morrow.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Lori Morrow. I am the designated parent member of the board.
As everybody has said, I just appreciate that everybody has been able to take the time out tonight. It's exciting. We have a much larger group tonight, so I look forward to hearing your comments.
Good, thank you. And Dr. McCarthy?
Good evening, everyone. I also echo my colleagues' gratitude for you taking time tonight to really help this process. We are very much committed to finding the best superintendent for our large school system, because our children do deserve the best. Well, all children deserve the best. And we really depend on your input to make sure that we have all the perspectives that we need as we search for the perfect candidate for our state. So thank you.
Thank you. And I'm not sure whether Dr. Lee has been able to join us. I know she was running, so she may pop in a little bit. She had a number of engagements this afternoon. Next, I'd like to introduce Mr. Wu.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jason Wu. I'm a student member on the Maryland State Board of Education. I'm also a Poolsville High School senior. It's been a pleasure to serve on this committee. I'm looking forward to hearing everyone's valuable insight tonight, especially from our students. So thank you very much.
Great, thank you. And then last but not least, General Sumter.
Good evening, everyone, and I want to thank you. This is the largest group we've had in the last 3 sessions, so I'm happy I put the whole time into it this time to be with you, and I'm really impressed with the number of students that have been involved in this, as gone through the process, and that's very important. And for the teachers and the administrators and the parents and just community members. So far, it's been very enlightening, and I thank you all very much, as my folks have already spoken, but thank you very much for your time and input.
All righty, thank you. I'd like to turn it back to Julie. Julie?
Thank you. And I would just like to, well, I'll introduce myself. I'm Julie Holly. I'm a consultant with Greenwood Asher, and Dr. Greenwood and I are privileged to be partnering with Maryland Department of Education on this very, very important search. And we have very much appreciated the comments that we've been privileged to listen to over the last few forums, and are looking forward to hearing from you. What the feedback that we receive will help us build a position profile and also help us with our recruitment efforts, ensuring that we are recruiting for you the right candidates that will be a great match for this position for the next state superintendent. Jan, is there anything you'd like to add before I talk about process? So hearing no comments, I'll just jump right in about process. Just as a reminder, all of you that have registered to speak, you received a speaker number, and that's the order that we will be calling on you to speak. You'll have 3 minutes to speak on the topics that we shared with you in the email. You'll also be given a 1-minute warning when you're at that point, and then when your 3 minutes are up, I will let you know that your time is completed and you can finish your thought, and we'll move on to the next speaker. As I said, we very much appreciate your comments. And if you don't feel as though you've had enough time to share your thoughts with us, please feel free to reach out to either myself or Jan. We're happy to gather more feedback from you. And then the other thing, before we get started, I would just echo Clarence's request that you all do go online and complete the survey. And then also please do share that link with your colleagues and constituent groups, so that we can get as much input around everyone's thoughts about the process and the next state superintendent, and what the sort of challenges and opportunities that you all see facing the next state superintendent. It's really going to be helpful to inform the work that we do. So with that being said, we'll jump right in. The first speaker is speaker number 1, David Jones. Oh, and before I one other comment before you get started, David. If you would, as soon as I call upon you, just unmute yourself. And then when you're finished speaking, if you would remute yourself to avoid any unnecessary background noise. And then also, if you have the YouTube channel on in the background, if you could just either mute it or turn that off, because that also will cause some feedback that will be distracting. So I appreciate your help with this. And so again, we'll just get started with speaker number 1, David Jones.
Good evening, everybody. My name is David Jones, and I am the chairman of the Maryland Future Business Leaders of America Board of Directors. FBLA is one of 3 career and technical student organizations the Maryland State Department of Education has partnered with to provide co-curricular experiences to students who are enrolled in a career and technical education program. And FBLA is the largest career student business organization in the world with more than 230,000 members nationwide. We provide opportunities for students to interact with and learn from business leaders to gain real-world perspective and leadership skills to add to their classroom education. And I'm speaking regarding the superintendent search from my perspective and working with the Maryland State Department of Education as chairman of the Maryland FBLA Board of Directors. One of the characteristics that is important for the next superintendent to have is a commitment to an understanding of the critical role career and technical education has in our education system. Career and technical education teaches career skills that prepare students for high demand careers and is critical to help Maryland students be competitive and successful in college and the job market. And the next superintendent should bring a wealth of private industry experience and an understanding of the benefits of a partnership with student organizations like FBLA. Having a superintendent who appreciates and values the real-world experiences and unique mentoring opportunities industry partners, like the business leaders on the Maryland FBLA Board of Directors, bring to the table is crucial, along with a commitment to continuing to support partnerships with career and technical student organizations like FBLA. And the Maryland FBLA Board of Directors alone has more than 200 years of combined industry and CTE experience amongst our board members, and ensuring the agency takes full advantage of that industry experience that organizations like FBLA provides is critical. And in regards to the challenges and opportunities the superintendent will face, in my regular conversations with teachers, students, and parents, I continue to hear a common message: improve online learning. And I'm impressed with how quickly and how well Maryland met the virtual learning challenge unexpectedly brought on by the COVID-19 pandemic. And when it's safe for teachers and students to return to the classroom, the superintendent should be prepared to consider the opportunities online learning may continue to offer our education system. Maryland FBLA looks forward to working with the next superintendent and their administration in ensuring the Maryland public school system remains one of the top school systems in the nation. And we thank the Maryland State Board of Education for your time tonight and for considering our organization's feedback. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your comments. Very helpful. Moving on then to speaker number 2, Connor Curran.
Good evening, members of the State Superintendent Search Committee and Maryland State Board of Education. My name is Connor Curran. I'm a senior at Old Mill High School in Millersville, and I serve as the president of the Chesapeake Regional Association Student Councils, the official voice of Anne Arundel County Public School students. The next state superintendent is going to be facing a number of new issues. We are in the middle of a global pandemic, a fight for racial inequality, and a new age of technology. The next individual to lead us must have courage to lead when times are difficult and be able to adapt quickly. The next state superintendent must be dedicated to educational equity. The Maryland State Department of Education oversees 24 unique school systems, each with its own sets of unique challenges. Understanding the local jurisdictions in our state operate differently requires streamlined communication. When working with local superintendents, it is important to note that they manage anywhere from 5 to over 200 schools and from 2,000 to 165,000 students in their district. The next state superintendent must be able to work collaboratively with those superintendents to ensure that they are supporting students in every district of our great state. As we are still in the middle of a global pandemic, the individual you select must be able to provide insight with how staff and students will return back to brick and mortar instruction. For the 13 of 24 districts that are currently fully virtual, it is crucial for the next superintendent to prioritize the safety of students and be able to provide resources to school districts to ensure that they are providing the highest quality of education they can be. This time is an opportunity to rethink the way we operate schools. The next superintendent must be willing to seize that opportunity and redesign how we see K-12 education. The Maryland public school system must strive to return to the top ranking that we've enjoyed for many years. Maryland is unique as its school districts are broken into county and not city. Local school districts have many countywide organizations that provide an opportunity for their students to be heard. The next superintendent must be willing to provide opportunities to meet with students.
1 minute.
Vital to ensure not only that their needs are met, but to provide real-world opportunities to engage with state education leadership. Hosting a statewide student advisory with the new state superintendent would be a great way to gather student input directly. In conclusion, the next leader of the Maryland State Department of Education must be courageous, innovative, and bold. There are an array of challenges that I have listed tonight that we must tackle and overcome together. Our students deserve it. The best way to inquire about the challenges of our school system is talking to those who are in the classrooms day in and day out. Talk to the students and teachers. I thank you all for the opportunity to speak and for your time.
Thank you very much, Connor. Appreciate your comments. We'll move on to speaker number 3, Jana Parker.
It's pronounced Jana. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Jana.
So my name is Jana Parker. I'm a resident of Prince George's County. I am a proud product of Maryland Public Schools, as well as a proud product of the HBCU Coppin State University. I work with several different coalitions in regards to specifically directly addressing the inadequacies within Maryland education as it relates to Black and Brown students. And while I'm not representing them in my comments today, I am pulling from the direct information that I get when I work with those coalitions. Some of the characteristics that the new incoming superintendent should have is the integrity to do what's best for our children outside of political pressure. They should be honest with a transparent disposition to the parents of Maryland. The parents of Maryland, as well as the students, deserve to know the truth in real time, as the work of education directly affects every aspect of one's life. The qualifications should also include a track record of proven results in regards to success for public schools and children of color, preferably higher than the national average. They should have spent at least some qualitative time as a teacher directly in schools teaching students. They should be trained and display copious amounts of cultural competency and cultural awareness. And they should have a detailed knowledge of the current commission and its effects on public education within Maryland, as well as any possible companion legislation. They should be objective and be able to hear all perspectives with a reasonable disposition, and yet make decisions that honor all of Maryland's goals as public schools. The next superintendent will have the opportunity to transform public education within Maryland under the current commission or blueprint for education, and should look to handling issues related to internet and digital access and racial inequalities and disparities with tenacity, diligence, focus, tremendous community engagement, support, and feedback from communities is important in part of our educational system as a whole. The next superintendent should be focused on supporting and revamping public schools and ensuring that tax dollars of our citizens go to really ensuring that the public education is the best for all residents. Maryland is unique. We have so much within our state. We have proud boatsmen on our waterways in the Chesapeake, down to the Eastern Shore, the mountains of Frostburg. We have farms throughout our state that feed the nation. Our cities in Baltimore are brimming with creativity, art, and our historic county of Prince George's is the history that shows the various indigenous peoples, including the Piscataway peoples, as well as housing the most affluent African-American population in America. The next superintendent must be able to make decisions for all of Maryland, as well as understanding and respecting the individuality of the 24 different counties. Maryland not only houses 24 different counties, but also is home to millions of proud Marylanders of all colors and creeds, but also to 4 illustrious and proud HBCUs, including University of Maryland Eastern Shore, Morgan State, Bowie, and the incomparable Coppin State. It will be the charge of the new superintendent to also support teacher education programs out of these universities in order to ensure that we have diversity within our education. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Moving on to speaker number 4, has canceled. So then we're moving on to speaker number 5, Ian Hurd.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Ian Hurd, and I'm a junior at La Plata High School in Charles County. I also serve as the student member on the Charles County Board of Education representing 27,000 students. 2020 was a year unlike any other. However, it provided us an opportunity to see how critical public education is to our society and how important compassionate, decisive leadership is in times of need. In searching for a state superintendent, it is imperative that the person selected exemplifies what it means to lead with empathy. As counties across Maryland choose to return to in-person school settings in the future, the effects of this pandemic will remain prevalent in our student community. Disparities will be enlarged, and academic achievement will continue to face the effects of being hindered throughout this year. The Maryland public school system is distinguished by its diversity of its administrators, teachers, students, and other support staff. It is crucial that our next superintendent understands the resource that diversity is and uses it to always benefit our Maryland students with enriched perspective. Our next superintendent should make it a central goal to provide the resources and education needed to create an equitable Maryland school system without the disparities enlarged by this pandemic. In addition, our next superintendent must have the courage to allow the public school system to adapt our lessons to address social injustice and teach our students to be better global citizens. I know the challenges our next superintendent will face won't be easy, but I have faith our school system will prevail. Thank you for your time and careful consideration.
Thank you very much, Ian. Appreciate your comments. Moving on then to speaker number 6, Thornell Jones.
Thank you for this opportunity to speak to you this evening. The most basic requirement for the future, superintendent of schools for Maryland is that they have a full understanding of the background material from the National Center for Education and Economics that has provided the background for the blueprint for Maryland. We have to have a strong early childhood education program, and it needs to be closely monitored to ensure that all children come to kindergarten ready to learn. And that, even though that may seem to be outside of the superintendent's perspective, it is important that the superintendent understand that. So therefore, the superintendent must have a strong business experience, not just education. That person must understand the need for stronger teachers, more professional teachers, and support the career ladder of teachers throughout the state. Our students do need to be college and career ready at the end of the 10th grade. Only 32% of the students are that now. And certainly in the next 3 years, that number should at least be up to 50%. And in 10 years, it should be 100%. College and career ready at the end of the 10th grade is the international standard. So our superintendent should be focused on that, if nothing else. More resources to ensure students are successful is something that a good business person would have already understood. It was a terrible mistake to not be prepared for a disaster, and not being prepared for the disaster of the pandemic was because we had never checked to see that we were ready for a disaster. Otherwise, we would have known that all of our students needed computing equipment and computer connectivity. So, I want to finish by saying that the blueprint for Maryland is our way to the future, and absolutely the new superintendent needs to be totally focused on making that a successful project. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Appreciate it. Moving on next to speaker number 7, Kevin Bokum. I apologize if I'm not pronouncing your name properly.
Thank you, board members and Superintendent Search Committee. My name is Kevin Bokum, and I serve as a student member on the Washington County Board of Education. This next state superintendent must be one who has a background in education, preferably being a teacher in the classroom. Without having that background, a superintendent cannot conduct their job properly. They have to make sure everyone under them has an equal opportunity to succeed. The superintendent must also make sure to put CTE programs in the forefront. Maryland is a very diverse state with over 24 different counties. We have some of the richest counties and we have some of the poorest. Maryland has often been referred to as a mini America, and the superintendent must realize that. They must be willing to make visits to rural schools all the way in Garrett County, as well as visit the most populated schools in Montgomery County. The superintendent must also make sure that student leadership is a top priority. And through that, student leadership has been one of the prime characteristics that defines Maryland schools. Maryland is one of the few states in the whole nation which has such an emphasis on student leadership and student capabilities. The superintendent should make sure to put that into their forefront focus. The superintendent must also make sure to address pre-K and early childhood education. One of the core things that defines a student's later success is their success in early childhood. If a student is not at reading level by the time they enter 2nd grade, their likelihood of graduating decreases significantly. Their likelihood of getting college and career readiness decreases. And the superintendent must make sure to address that substantial factor. The superintendent must also be well-versed in business and also legislation that may come from the Maryland General Assembly. The superintendent does not just wear one hat, but many different ones. They serve in over 15 different committees and councils, including the Governor's Council and the MSDE Excellence Council. They must make sure that they can work with politicians, but also keep the forefront goal of having student success in their forefront.
1 minute.
And I will wrap up by saying this. We have been tossed into a pandemic, not a pandemic of disease, but also a pandemic of learning loss. Another one of the superintendent's priority goals should be making sure that the learning loss gap can be addressed through accelerating learning and ensuring Maryland remains one of the top most rated school systems in the state. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Appreciate your comments. Moving on next to speaker number 8, Samantha Warfel.
Good evening. My name is Samantha, and I am a sophomore in Baltimore County at Hereford High School. On behalf of my fellow students, I am hopeful that the next state superintendent has a passion for students and will embrace the Maryland Association of Student Councils with an open mind, open arms, and is ready and willing to listen to students. In addition, I hope that the next state superintendent wholly supports the role of the state student member of the board, as well as those who hold the role in their respective counties. My hope is that the next state superintendent will embrace the opportunity for forum and education on today's current events and their impact on communities, and be proactive in responding to the overall decline of student mental health and outcry for mental health resources in our schools. The opportunity to prioritize the safe and healthy reopening of schools is a pivotal one, and I hope that our next state superintendent realizes this. The question of what would make a successful superintendent is one that we can answer when we as students are confident that the next superintendent acts in our best interest, showing an unwavering support of the student voice. The new superintendent must believe students and support our passion and plea for items such as comprehensive race education and racial representation in literacy, technology infrastructure, reevaluation of sexual assault and misconduct policy, and universal pre-K. Thank you so much for your time today, and I thank you on behalf of my fellow students.
Thank you very much, Samantha. Moving on next to speaker number 9, Cooper DeLauder.
Good evening. To the members of the Search Committee and State Board, I thank you for your hard work and dedication to finding a state superintendent. My name is Cooper DeLauder, the second vice president of the Maryland Association of Student Councils. And since the beginning of middle school, I've worked hard to ensure that the voices of my peers and fellow students are being heard. Seemingly small decisions can greatly impact the day-to-day lives of students, and with close to 900,000 students, that's a very large impact. This is why we need a superintendent that will acknowledge the importance of the student voice and implement strategies to ensure that it is being heard. Another important quality that the next superintendent must have is understanding the diversity of the Maryland school system. Diversity and equity must be a factor in decision-making, along with age. The life and needs of a middle schooler can be vastly different than that of a high schooler, and in making a decision, it must be taken into account that not everything that will apply to a high schooler will apply to a middle schooler. As student voice is important, and we are major stakeholders in education, the next superintendent must be aware and supportive of the Maryland Association of Student Councils, one of the largest outlets for the student voice, so that the organization and student voice is strong. I thank you all for your time and look forward to the new things that will come with the new superintendent.
Thank you very much, Cooper. We appreciate it. Next is speaker number 10, Cheryl Boast.
Good evening, President Crawford and members of the board, and thank you for having these forums. I'm Cheryl Boast. I'm a 4th and 5th grade teacher in Baltimore County, serving as the president for the Maryland State Education Association, which many of you already know. So as we're looking for a new state superintendent, I'm going to cover a couple areas. I couldn't agree more with Kevin, who talked about a person who has taught, who has actually taught in a diverse environment and has well-rounded teaching and school leadership in the public schools. This is very important to know the way that people teach, what's happening in our schools. And right now, you only have one teacher on the state board. And so this will help make sure that the education is at the forefront. We also want to make sure that this person understands our state, understands the differences between Garrett County, Kent County, Montgomery County, Prince George's County. We have a very diverse state, not just geography, but the way our economics, the way everything works in our state, they have to have a comprehensive view. The key part, and I would have to agree with Connor, is relationships and communication. Unfortunately, I would have to say we have very little communication right now. I can talk to many of you and I can talk to many of our elected officials, but I have yet to have a conversation with Superintendent Salmon for many months and for the State Department. Collaboration is important with your key stakeholders. We represent the folks who implement all of the programs that you design. And so you may not have yes people around you, but it's good to have diverse thoughts and thinking. You can disagree without being disagreeable, as we need to teach the Congress. There also has to be local collaboration. I see many letters coming from the state superintendents and the school boards to you, and that is because there's a lack of communication and collaboration. I would also say this person has to be able to lead in our new school era. We can't go back to the same schools, brick and mortar, that we left. We have to address the racial and social justice inequities that we have in our schools. They're longstanding and have been exacerbated due to the pandemic. We have to do cultural competency training, implicit bias training, and we have to work to overcome the opportunity gaps for our students. And finally, I would say that this next superintendent has to be clear that they do not work for the governor. They work for the students, the educators, and the communities of this state. They need to be the top advocate for students and educators and communities. It is important that we understand who this person works for and the betterment of our public schools as we're moving forward. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your comments. Moving on next to speaker number 11, Janice Sartucci.
Good evening. My name is Janice Sartucci, and I'm with the Parents Coalition of Montgomery County, Maryland. The Parents Coalition requests that the next Maryland Public School Superintendent be someone who respects and abides by and enforces the Maryland Constitution's guarantee of free public schools. The Constitution specifically states that the General Assembly shall by law establish throughout the state a thorough and efficient system of free public schools. However, in Montgomery County Public Schools, MCPS has been systematically denying students a free public education for over 20 years. The Parents Coalition has documented these illegal curricular fees since 2003 and has repeatedly notified the Maryland State Board and Superintendent about these illegal fees since 2008. To date, Montgomery County Public Schools is still charging students, even while virtual, illegal curricular fees to attend public schools. In August of 2008, we requested assistance from the Maryland Office of the Attorney General and received a 2-page letter that explained that we are safe in saying that anything directly related to a school's curriculum must be available to all without charge. In September 2008, I personally gave public comment to the Maryland State Board of Education and the superintendent detailing the fees that were being charged in Montgomery County Public Schools. In September of 2010, the Maryland State Board of Education sent a letter to each and every school system in Maryland reminding the superintendents that Maryland has a free public education responsibility and asking each student to report back any course-related fees. The State Board gathered this information and then did nothing, allowing existing illegal curricular fees to continue to be charged to unsuspecting public school students. The Montgomery County Gazette newspaper reported on this action by the State Board. As of today, illegal curricular fees are still being charged to students in Montgomery County Public Schools, and past and present state superintendents have allowed this illegal practice to continue. When asked about the charging of illegal curricular fees, a representative of the Maryland ACU called this taxing the ignorant, because those that know these fees are illegal do not pay them, but those that do not know the law pay the fees. That's taxing the ignorant. It's time for a Maryland Public Schools superintendent that will give Maryland Public Schools children their basic right to free public schools. And I would just like to add on to Mr. Jones, I don't know if he's still here, but I would like to echo what he said about the school systems not being prepared for the pandemic. Montgomery County Public Schools had a pandemic flu plan in place dated 2009. It had never been updated, and the Maryland State Superintendent had never checked to see that the local school systems were in fact prepared for a pandemic. MCPS actually received a Baldrige Award in part for their pandemic flu plan from 2009. That plan stated that the school system would send the children home and teachers would provide worksheets. That was it. And that's the plan that was in place in March of 2020 when the actual pandemic flu hit. Thank you for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your comments, Janice. Moving on to speaker number 12, Christina, and I apologize if this is the correct pronunciation, but Push, okay.
Got it, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity, and I echo a lot of the same sentiments and comments of the colleagues before me. I'm Christina Push, the Executive Director of the Maryland State Child Care Association, representing almost 5,000 child care providers and programs across the state of Maryland. And the characteristics and qualifications for the next superintendent should include a clear vision, the ability to provide transparency, to be a great communicator and collaborator, as been mentioned, but also to be engaged with stakeholders at his or her, and also be engaged with his or her own internal MSD department leadership. And to be an active listener to students, a listener to the stakeholders and organizations and partners and other agencies that you have to work with in collaboration. Also, you need strong leadership, and that is in bringing private and public sectors together and the ability to empower the leaders that she has within MSDE, we also are interested in making sure the superintendent puts the interests of children first, but also has an understanding of all areas in which the authority that she or he represents, including childcare. Unfortunately, especially during this pandemic, childcare has felt sort of like the red-headed stepchild of MSDE. We are under their auspice and authority, and yet we have not been given the respect of our industry. So we would like to see that the almost 8,000 small businesses represented in Maryland, which is larger than some much bigger states, have some type of either liaison with the State Board of Education, as well as some type of liaison and work with the superintendent in order to be sure our voices are heard. Also, we wanted to make sure that the impact of Kerwin and the expansion of universal pre-K will be considered that in childcare, we cannot sustain our businesses and our business model without our 3s and 4s. So in order to roll this out and expand, we need to make sure parents won't lose their infant toddler care or pay more. And so we need to work together on all of those efforts. And
1 minute.
Yep, and the challenges and opportunities, there's plenty of challenges, especially due to the pandemic, that this next superintendent will face immediately and over the next 3 years. But we will need to work with the fallout and address the slots and the childcare losses. And without more investments and the ability to speak with the legislature about more funding and using it wisely, many families will struggle to get back to work and to get our economy where it needs to be. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Next is speaker number 14, Corinna Chapman. Is she with us? Not seeing her. Next is speaker number 15, Alan Tuck. Not seeing Alan. Then
Julie, I think you may have skipped one on the list.
I did. I'm sorry. 13. I'm sorry. It was 2 Christinas. It confused me in a row. So 13, Christina Lopez. Sorry about that.
Okay. I was going to patiently wait till the end because I'm an early childhood educator and we are flexible. So, good evening.
Thank you. I apologize.
My name is Christina Lopez. I am a proud public school graduate from Prince George's County. I'm an educator of 18 years in the same county. I have 6 children. I now reside in St. Mary's County. 2 children with exceptionalities and a 3-year-old with developmental delay, which I like to say is just taking her own pace here in St. Mary's County. And I am also the current president of the Maryland Association for the Education of Young Children, which represents over 3,000 early childhood educators, advocates, and parents, and members who believe that every child deserves the right to reach their full potential, birth to age 8. And we focus on that because that is where the foundation is made. We have science that tells us this. Recently, the National Academy of Science released a report, and it unequivocally proves that these are the years in which the pathways of the brain are established for all future learning. And so when we talk about the characteristics of the superintendent, we need a superintendent who understands that and who appreciates that. And one of the things that we do in early childhood is we look at the whole child. We know that not one piece of development or academics happens in isolation. Reading skills are tied to mathematical thinking and scientific thinking and later success in life. And those social skills that are often called soft skills, and new research is telling us are really the critical skills of the future, are the things that we ground our work in. And so we need a superintendent who understands the importance of that and is able, in the very least, to recognize that and to elevate and to take advantage of the potential of Maryland as a leader in this. We have our early childhood department in education. We have said, this is education, birth to 5. But
1 minute.
what are that practices? So this leader will need to be able to have collective leadership skills. They will need to take a systemic approach because this system was not designed to educate all children. I could go on and tell you what I have experienced for my own children and what I have seen in the schools, but we can fix it. It's going to take courage. It's going to take innovation and the recognition that this cannot be done from the top down. You must elevate the people that are there doing the work, and you must respect their voice. We need to evaluate what we are measuring and how we're measuring it. Let's look at those statistics that tell us that Black and brown children are not succeeding and ask hard questions about, is this a true assessment of their ability? Because it wasn't what I saw teaching in Prince George's County. And we don't want to continue to perpetuate a deficit mindset. There is diversity in this state like no other.
Christina, that's your time. Sorry.
Elevate that potential.
Thank you very much. So let me come back to Karina Chapman. Has she joined us? Number 14? No. Okay. Then speaker number 15, Alan Tuck. Okay. And we'll move on to speaker number 16, Lakia Newkirk.
Hi, thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't know when I registered I was going to actually have to talk. I appreciate the survey. It was pretty long and extensive, so I'm pretty much sure that you got everything that's up in there. But I'm going to just go over some things that I kind of hinted on in my survey. I wanted to, so one of the things I wanted to, she's no longer on here, but I'm also an alumni of Coppin State University's education department. And so one of the things I wanted to hit on was CTE programs. My daughter, who goes to Silas, is a CTE participant in Baltimore County Public Schools. We've always been talking about the need to continue marketing CTE to Black and brown students in middle school, as well as to do better work to engage students or graduates at historically Black colleges and universities. As a nonprofit owner, I'd like to talk the new superintendent to consider allyship with grassroots organizations to build capacity for social and emotional education and learning loss, crisis prevention, post-COVID, or while we're in COVID, quite frankly. I'd like the superintendent to have a history of working with large systems. We, as a member of the board of the Renaissance Association, we also have kind of an infrastructure issue. We fight issues of building more housing, but then we build a school, and by the time we build a school, it doesn't have capacity to hold the students. And then we have crumbling infrastructure that is already there. Promoting culturally competent teaching and curriculum, supporting middle school students and principals. That needs to be a plan. I think we lose too many in that transition. Standing up to politicians. I don't know about the rest of the state of Maryland, but we need money in Baltimore County. And we talked about great things here, and some of those great things need to be resourced. So I don't know how we're going to budget, but that needs to be something they may have history in. And then equity, access, and opportunity for all students. That's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your comments. Then moving on to speaker number 17, Brian Trimble.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate this forum, and certainly welcome all the other comments that have been. It's been actually great to listen in on. So I'm a public school graduate as well, and a parent of 3 teenagers in Harford County Public Schools. And so actually after completing the survey, I discussed it with them and had them even provide some input. And it was interesting that one of the qualifications that they wanted in a school superintendent was somebody that loved kids and was interested in the future of the students, because I think they see so much of the people that they interact with, that the ones that are most helpful seem to be the ones that are most interested in, what they're doing and, their future as well. And maybe somebody who's adaptive to new and better practices for learning, and even in some cases revisiting areas where other successful programs have ended, so that we're open to change. If we're learning and hearing about new ways of teaching, that those things can be implemented quickly. And as far as the challenges, obviously with the pandemic, I really believe that getting kids back in school has to be a #1 priority. The online learning that my 3 kids are receiving, they all have different personalities. They all adapt and receive it uniquely. And so having one style of learning for all kids with all learning styles, all the different types of classes, it's not working. and maybe seeing how states and even other private education systems who are open are doing it successfully, and then looking at implementing those things quickly. And over the next 3 years, how we'll be able to tell whether they're successful is if they've created an environment that not only teaches kids the basics that allow them to excel in global standards, but also inspires kids to learn and be self-motivated to continue learning, so that they just don't see high school as being the end and seeing school as a burden. And just a final comment, I just feel like Maryland needs to open schools and sports activities as soon as possible. Just the mental and social challenges that students are facing today is going to affect Maryland's future and our students' futures as well. And so thank you for this format.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Let's see, moving on to speaker number 18, Catherine Katzen.
Hi there, thank you. I'm a Maryland parent, and I appreciate your giving me the opportunity to speak today. I'm here because it's come to my attention that the wireless microwave radio frequency radiation emitted from Wi-Fi and the cell towers, many of which are located on school property adjacent to schools, has been linked in nearly 25,000 studies to adverse health effects, ranging from neurologic effects such as sleep impairments, impaired learning and memory problems, dementia and tinnitus, cardiac and blood pressure effects, reproductive issues, endocrine and immune effects, genotoxicity, and cancer, including breast, thyroid, and brain tumors. Hundreds of scientists are calling for a reduction of wireless radiation in people rather than an increase in exposure. In fact, the Montgomery County Council sued the FCC over the lack of response to the county's request to update its outdated 1996 safety standards. On the same note, in 2012, the American Academy of Pediatrics sent a letter to the FCC urging them to do a formal inquiry into the radiation standards of cell phones and other wireless products, because children are disproportionately impacted by all environmental exposures, including cell phone radiation. On the same note, in other countries, including France, French Polynesia, and Cyprus, the countries have taken steps to ban Wi-Fi in kindergartens, in classrooms, and to restrict its use in elementary schools. Furthermore, EU Resolution 1815 recommends wired, not Wi-Fi, access in schools. Closer to home, the New Jersey Education Association and the Children's Environmental Health and Protection Advisory Council of the Maryland Department of the Environment both recommend turning off Wi-Fi, using wires and cable to connect to the internet, and keeping devices away from the body.
1 minute.
I'm asking for you to please do all that you can to see that the new superintendent is aware of these very important health issues and that our students are kept safe. That's the most important mission in education, is to keep our students safe so that they're able to learn. We need to stop having school systems make profits off of leasing land for cell towers next to schools where our children are for most of the day. Please do all that you can to ensure that we can have safe schools and places where our children can live and thrive and be healthy. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments. Next is speaker number 19, Tanish Gupta. Don't think they're with us. Then we'll move on to speaker number 20, Ruby Daniels.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ruby Daniels. I'm a family child care provider and an early childhood educator in Howard County, and the president of Maryland State Family Child Care Association, representing 4,753 family child care providers in the state of Maryland. In the search for the next Maryland State Superintendent, qualities that we would like is someone who worked well with others, effective communicator, responsive, and a good listener. someone who can engage in an open and honest communication, and someone who's familiar with the family childcare, early childhood education setting. This, just like Chris Bush was saying, we are one of the section of the education that's being overlooked, childcare. So our next superintendent will be someone who can also effectively work with the family childcare leadership to ensure common sense administrative practices and regulations. This will help stop the decline. We also want someone who will work with Maryland State Family Child Care Association, or MSFCCA, on an ongoing basis to mutually address the challenges facing the family child care industry in Maryland. My hope also is that the next superintendent will support and value the child care community. With the pandemic, childcare never left the classroom. We're teaching our youngest children from birth to 5, and we're providing quality care, and we're providing education, and never left the classroom even during the pandemic. We look forward to working with the next state superintendent, and my thanks again for allowing me to speak on behalf of family childcare providers and for listening. I know it's a long day for everyone. Thank you, everyone, and I appreciate everything that you do.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Clarence, I think that's our last speaker for this evening.
Again, I want to thank everyone for coming out. We appreciate your comments. The board members wanted to be here. We will get a summary from Greenwood and we'll be able to look at it, but our board members wanted to be here to be able to hear it live, and we thank you for that. Again, please complete the online survey if you haven't, and encourage your colleagues and friends who are residents of the state of Maryland to complete the survey as well. And we just pray that you have a great and safe weekend, and thank you very much again for everything. We appreciate it. Good evening.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.